Excellent. Okay, class. So after all the debate. Okay, today we're going to continue talking about English for specific, for academic purposes, but today we're going to concentrate in academic, okay? What is academic language, okay? How can we use academic, where can we use academic language, okay? So let's start, wait a minute. Let's open the, oh, you have already opened the platform. Okay. And so let's start in unit 2. Unit 2. Okay. 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 Okay, so as we're going to talk about academic language, this is a small joke, okay? I wonder you can read and you tell me if it is good or, okay? Okay, who wants to read aloud? All right, Ana Rocio, could you read the first part? And Keila Dorado, could you read the second part? Okay. Ana Rocio, please, could you read the first part? Okay.
Okay.
Could read, please.
A woman in labor suddenly shouted. Shouldn't, wouldn't, couldn't, didn't, can't.
Okay. And Keila?
Don't worry, said the dog. Those are just constructions.
Okay. Can you understand the joke? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, woman could
Yes.
understand that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Very nice. Okay, very good. So we're going to talk about that things now, contraction, all of those things. Okay, let's open our unit 2. Okay, so today we're going to watch another video and we're going to read a book, and then we're going to analyze some parts of the book, so we can you can work with this, you know, with this topic. Oh, where is no lo veo, no lo veo PowerPoint, no está abriendo. Well, let's wait a minute. There's. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Not yet.
Not the teacher, professor.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Wait a minute. Okay, there you go. Okay. Academic language. Okay, we have another job. What did the left eye say to the right eye? Between you and me, something smells. It's another joke. Can you hear? Can you understand the joke?
Yes, Professor.
Okay. Okay. Those jokes are very interesting because they are like word games. Okay. Okay, let's start with this. Okay. Okay. What is academic language? Okay. Academic language is a language of the school and it's used in textbooks, essays, assignments, class presentation, and assessment. Academic language is used at all grade levels, although its frequency increases as a student gets older. Okay, so mainly you use academic language in the school, listening school. But also we can see that this academic language we can use it is also the language of the workplace. Okay. For example, the language used to write a business letter, or for example, as opposed to a casual email to a coworker. Okay. So in all those fields, we can use academic language. Okay, we're going to watch this video and then we can complete the idea of this, what is academic language. Okay, let's, okay, 1 minute. Let's see. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, 1 second. Okay. Vamos a hacerlo de esta manera. sometimes when you use the PowerPoint and you try to link, to create link, it's a little hard. So that's why it's better you can copy the link and put directly into the how do you call this? The machine. Okay. Wait a minute. Where is it? Okay. Okay. Before continue with the video, I think that we can continue working with this. Okay. Because you're going to watch the video, but we're going to try to answer this question or get some idea. Okay, the next question. Okay. Okay. The Dr. Escarcela is talking about how they employ academic language. Okay. And the first thing that you're going to see is describe how academic English differs from the English we use in everyday life. What are some misconceptions people might have about academic language development? Does your school have an effective, comprehensive academic language curriculum in place? If not, how could you work with colleagues within your school to develop one? Okay, this question you can answer after you have already watched the whole video. Okay. According to Dr. Escarcela, how might academic language instructions be designed to address the needs of both newcomer ELLs, English language learners? That's the meaning of this. English language learners and non-third ELLs. Okay. Based on what you've heard today, you can describe skills other than vocabulary knowledge that are essential to academic language proficiency. Okay, so keep in mind skills. What types of professional development activities do you think would be helpful to teachers who want to learn more about effective academic English instruction? Okay, so while you're watching the video, you try to answer or to complete these questions, okay? Do you understand what you have to do? Yes?
Yes, we have to answer in Word, in some specific way, or
No, just take notes.
okay.
Some ideas. Write some ideas in your notebooks. Then we are going to work with those ideas, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Let's watch the video. I'm going to look at the video. Okay. Well. This is one. Okay. Okay. We had the video, but also we have this article. I want to share the article. This is an article this by William Reiser. Okay. Why is academic language important? What is your role? Okay, this information is we are going to mix with the video. Okay, so I'm going to give you time to read and to compare with the video. Okay, and later we can see this video if you want. Okay, it's a little long, but don't worry, you're going to have time to read this article. But let's start watching the video that I told you before. Okay. You are going to compare. First, we are going to watch video. Then you have your answers. And after that, I'm going to give you time for you to read this article and you can compare the ideas. Okay. And after that, we are going to do an activity so we can socialize the whole thing. Okay. Very good. Yes, let's go to the video. It's a bit long, sorry. Just wait a minute. Okay. Yes, we can get this. Okay. Oh.
And ESL at the University of California, Irvine campus. So, long title, it must be an important topic. What is
That's and that's it.
Hello, I'm Delia Pompa. Welcome to the Colorín Colorado webcast series, English language learners. Joining me is Dr. Robin Scarcella. She is the professor and director of the program in academic language and ESL at the University of California, Irvine campus. So, long title, it must be an important topic. What is academic language?
Academic language is a language used in school contexts. It's the language of texts. It's a language of prestige and power in the United States, and those who have acquired academic language tend to go on and become very successful in academic settings. Unfortunately, those students who do not acquire academic language oftentimes fail and sometimes end up dropping out of school.
I believe you brought an example to share with us.
Yes, I did. I brought these 2 letters from my student, Vaughn. Vaughn came from Vietnam at age 5, and she went through all of our public schools. And you can see that she wrote this letter because she was very distraught because she'd been placed in a beginning level English as a second language writing course at the University of California at Irvine. I was the director of the program and she was my student. She did not want to be in this class, and so she wrote this letter, and she actually brought all her work from her high school, and she had poetry to share with me, and she had essays and a variety of different written work, all of which was written in a very interesting style of informal, everyday English. It wasn't academic. And so she wrote this, you can see this beautiful letter saying that she had read many books, that she had written and spoken English since she says, since time I come to US. And all her friends speak English. I speak nobody with the, she only speaks English with her friends in the dorm, and she reads many books, she writes. Please do not make me lose the face. I have confidence in English.
And so you then put her through a program of instruction?
Flying. So I had to, even though she received straight A's in English in high school, I had to put her in my ESL academic English sequence of 3 courses, and at the end of the year she wrote the second letter.
And so in the second letter you can tell the difference.
You can see this amazing difference in her vocabulary, in her grammatical development, even in her rhetoric. Hi Robin, she begins, and then she goes on and she asks for a letter of recommendation. Well, she does get this letter. She does actually get an internship in Washington, D.C., and then she goes on after she graduates from UCI into graduate school. And you could see what excellent English she uses. Now, is her English perfect native English speaker? No, of course not, but it's very good.
But she's got all the conventions, and she's got academic language.
She can go into any field she wants to.
Now this brings up the question about the difference between social language and academic language. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, you can see that in social everyday English, it's possible to communicate imprecisely without using English grammatically correctly. You don't need articles the and to really show what you mean. You don't need to have prepositions or use the correct preposition in your language. You can use basic everyday words. You can make your language very colorful by using slang. You can avoid pronoun reference if you want to, especially if the addressee already knows what you're talking about.
Do you need to get to a certain level of social language before you move on to academic language?
What's interesting is in the United States, we believe that students must acquire informal English first, and then they can acquire academic English afterwards. In reality, it's very helpful for students to be able to begin a conversation and keep it going, have those sort of basic conversational skills. But at the same time, we can be laying the foundation for academic language. We need not wait until students have completely mastered informal, everyday English.
Well, are there activities a teacher can plan to help a student understand the difference between social language and academic language?
Yes, there are. One of my favorite activities is giving students a passage of academic language and then a passage of informal language and comparing them step by step. so that students understand, wow, when I look at informal English, it uses a lot of repetition of words. And when I look at academic language, it has a variety of words and more sophisticated words. When I look at informal English, it's perfectly fine to begin a sentence with the words and but. But when I look at academic language has transition words such as however and moreover and in addition. When I look at informal English, I can use stuff and slang such as guy, cool, awesome. But when I use academic language, I avoid using slang. So there's big differences, and that's a great strategy, instructional strategy for teaching students to recognize the difference. So I give them two passages, one informal, one academic, and then I have them get together in groups or with a pair partner and actually write out a list of the features that characterize these. I do this again and again so that students understand that academic English is different from informal English.
Well, you've talked about some written examples, but you started to talk a little bit about oral examples. Is it mainly a written problem, or does it show up in oral language also?
Teachers often think that academic English is not an oral problem. It's a challenge, both in writing and in speech, and it's very important that teachers scaffold students' development of oral academic language so that they're able to participate in academic discussions and debates and make presentations in front of their peers. Teachers can use a variety of activities to scaffold their production of academic language. One of my favorite ones is preparing students in advance to talk orally in front of others by having them partner up and actually teach them academic words and grammatical features that they might use in making an academic presentation. And then the next step is, of course, having them practice these with their partner before they do the oral presentation. Because too often teachers have students, English learners, make presentations when the students aren't prepared.
They have no practice in it.
And they need to practice, 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 practice.
Well, speaking of practice, I think we've come to understand that a knowledge of a student's ability to read in his native language has a lot to do with predicting how he's going to read in English. Is the same true for academic language?
Absolutely. We know that if students have acquired academic language in their first languages, for example in Spanish, and then they come to the United States, they're able to acquire academic language much faster than if they didn't know academic language in their first language.
What you've described, and you work with older students, don't you?
Yes, I do.
But we've heard that they're beginning to test younger students for academic language. When ideally should teachers begin to worry about English, academic language, and working with students?
We need to be concerned about teaching academic language in all grade levels and in all proficiency levels as well. However, when students first come into kindergartens, we're not going to be teaching them very sophisticated ways of writing and ways of expressing themselves in English. We're going to be teaching them grade appropriate kindergarten talk, setting the background, the foundation of academic language. And so, yes, we're going to be teaching them the conversational skills of the kindergarten, but we're also going to be teaching them vocabulary that's going to help them to acquire academic language later on. By the time children reach the 4th grade, we're going to be transitioning into teaching more sophisticated academic language skills. And once they reach high school, we're going to have to make sure that students know a large vocabulary of academic words used across academic disciplines, and they have access to and are able to use more complicated grammatical structures.
Well, tell us a little bit more about how students of different ages need to learn different kinds of things.
Yes, it's important that we make our instruction absolutely age appropriate. So when working with young children, kindergartners, for example, we've found that young children are great language learners, and they love to participate in instructional conversations in which that are specifically designed to teach academic words, language structures, even the discourse features.
Just to help our viewers, can you give us an example of something that a young student might learn that's academic language versus what an older student would learn?
Sure. A young child is often going to be participating in show and tell, for example. But there are very school-based ways to participate in show and tell, and ways that are very informal. And the steps of participating in a show and tell for a young child has to be made explicit.
Like, what's a word you would use that's
model.
academic?
So today I'm going to share with you, okay, not just tell or say or
So
talk
you've learned
about.
a new word there.
I'm going to share a particular experience I have had. Okay, now you've used the words sharing and experience, and these are very age appropriate, and yet they're sophisticated for a young child. Okay, what I wouldn't expect the young child to do is a complex literary analysis.
And would you expect an older student to do that? An English language learner? Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, you've presented a wonderful overview. So let's get into some of the detail. What areas of language are specific to academic language? Are there areas of language that are more specific to academic language, say, than social language?
Well, yes, all language proficiency consists of several different components. So when I think of language proficiency, I always start thinking of phonology, a phonological component. So in academic English, a young child, anybody, needs to know the phonological component consisting of the sounds of the English language. And they would have to know how to spell in English, and that's particularly important in academic language, but not so important in informal language. And they would have to know the phonological features of the English language. For example, to pronounce academic words, knowing the difference, for example, between anthropology and the shift and stress anthropological. Morphology,
Well,
morphological.
that's a good example. We don't often think that you have to learn the difference.
No, and yet English learners really do need to know these shifts in the stress. And so the phonological component is very important. Also, in addition to that, the vocabulary component. We're not going to see many changes in our students' test scores, certainly on all of the academic tests we give, until teachers teach vocabulary on an ongoing, everyday basis. Vocabulary is extraordinarily important in academic English.
Give me an example. Go back to anthropology, anthropological. How would a teacher actually teach that? Is that by teaching vocabulary? Is that by giving examples? What is the teacher to do that?
It's a very good question, Delia, and I think the answer is the teacher is going to teach vocabulary systematically and make sure that the students don't just learn the meaning of words but know how to use the word. So in teaching anthropology, anthropological, I would teach them I would have the students listen to the word and repeat it at least 3 times. Anthropology, anthropology, anthropology. Use it in a sentence from their textbook so they get to see the whole sentence as it occurs. And then I would talk about it to teach them how I would use it, making up other sentences. And then I'd have them use it. And they'd use it not just alone, but they'd use it in a sentence with a partner. And I'd have to do this again and again and again, knowing that all language learners aren't great learners in language, that some students just need to have more practice using the language and practice using the language accurately, not incorrectly.
There are so many aspects of language that second language learners need to develop and learn. How does the teacher choose what aspects of language to teach as academic language?
When the teacher is choosing a reading passage and teaching reading, the students are going to be doing reading, the primary concern is looking at those words and identifying the words that an English language learner is going to have difficulty understanding and will undermine the students' efforts to understand that text. And oftentimes, that will be an academic word. Not always, and it's really important for our teachers of English learners to know that it might be important to identify an academic word such as stimulate, that the student's having difficulty learning, or it might be important for the teacher to identify a single preposition or an adverb such as hardly, or a conjunction such as and, or that the student's having difficulty learning, and that will make a difference in the student's comprehension. That's different in production.
Would the teacher be so specific as to say, here's stimulate, and you use it here? Another way you say it is X. Is it that specific?
Yes, it's that specific. It's absolutely that specific. It would be good, I mean, if you're only trying to teach students the meaning of words, and this is the case for native speakers, then you could just say stimulate means, and you give a meaning and a definition. But for English language learners, it's different, because we want students not just to understand their text, this is where I was going with the question, but to be able to use the words in production. And we have been ignoring word use for a long time, and teachers really need to support the way students actually use words. So when students are going to be talking about the text, they need to know how to use the words. A really good activity for doing that, for teaching students how to use new words, is to give students a word bank, and then to talk about the words that and how they're used in the text, and then to talk about how the teacher uses the words, then to give the students the words, the definitions, and a model sentence, and say, turn to your partner, and I would like you to use some of the words we've discussed in describing X, Y, or Z.
So it goes beyond definition.
Absolutely has to go beyond definitions if you want children to be able to use words accurately, and we do.
Thank you so much. That was a very good overview. Now we're going to take a look at a school in Oregon where teachers are working on pinpointing those key vocabulary words, and where young children, English language learners, are working on reading comprehension as part of their academic language training.
To reach Heritage Elementary School, you have to travel 30 miles south of Portland, Oregon, past hazelnut orchards and Russian Orthodox churches.
We have children who are ethnic Russians from Russia, from Argentina, Latvia, East Tajikistan, Brazil, Turkey, China.
These kids can speak some English, but that's hardly enough to get by in school.
One misconception is that people feel that once a child starts speaking English and communicating with basic oral communication in the playground or at school, that child is able to succeed academically.
It's just not the case, because what some call survival English is a long way from mastering even the third grade academic curriculum. For Lilia Zaltzman, part of the job is teaching the kids one word at a time, first in their native Russian and then in English.
Plemię. Plemię in English it means tribe.
It's critical to be this explicit because Russian is so different from English.
Totem pole.
And the school is relentless in making sure their students understand what they read.
While we do our picture walk. Now, I'm not going to show you every picture in the book. I've chosen a few that I thought would really help us to explore this idea of fire.
In Larry Conley's class, the kids are doing what's called a picture walk. They use the pictures and draw on their background knowledge to predict what the story will be about.
Well, I've got a big question for you guys. What do you think this is a story about?
Don't use matches and lighters or else you're gonna get burned.
The work may seem painstaking, but Heritage is committed to creating readers who will have a deep understanding of what they read.
So often the kids move through the text so quickly that they're not understanding much. And so we're using those cognitive strategies as a way of slowing them down and getting them kind of invested in the text.
The last teacher, the teacher mentioned having students slow down and invest in the text. What are some of the strategies that help students do that and sort of acquire academic language? Certainly the teacher doesn't say slow down and invest in the text. Not to the student anyway.
No. Close reading of text is very important for English language learners who need to acquire academic language. A teacher can have the student choose a very short reading passage and read that passage aloud to the students so that the students get the melody of the language. Okay, now what the teacher is doing is slowing down. And then after the students hear the language, the teacher can explain what's in that very short reading passage and then ask the students to read it again, this time focusing on a few very specific features of academic language. And of course the teacher doesn't say, now I want you to look at academic language, but instead the teacher might say, we're going to be looking at how this piece of writing flows by looking at pronouns. And we're going to be underlining the pronouns and drawing a circle around the noun to which they refer. Okay, in this way, the students are learning the pronoun reference system in English, which is a huge stumbling block. And it improves their reading comprehension because now they know exactly what the he, she, it, we, they refer to. Okay, now there's other things that the teacher can do. One of the features of academic language are words and their associates, fixed expressions or collocations. We don't think about it all.
Say that again, fixed expressions and?
Fixed expressions that are also called collocations. These are words and their associates. They're words that go together. We don't often think about it, but certain words just go together.
Like
we
what?
say peanut butter and jelly. You don't say jelly and peanut butter. You say salt and pepper, not pepper and salt. Mr. and Mrs., not Mrs. and Mr. And this it's important that students learn these fixed expressions.
They're markers of knowing a second language well.
Of knowing a second language well, and they help the student to use the language precisely, and when they're not used precisely, a convention is broken. They're expected and preferred, and it irritates the native speaker when you go in.
So that's an interesting way of looking at academic language. In some ways, it's really speaking like a native speaker and being able to sort of go with the flow.
Yes, absolutely. It absolutely is. Accurately and effectively and obtaining your communicative objective. So reading closely a text and looking at pronominal reference is really important. Looking at the way synonyms are used, looking at word families, dissecting the paragraph very carefully, and talking about it helps students to incorporate the language that the author is using into his or her speech. So one of my favorite activities for getting students to use academic language is summarization. In summarization, what students do is they read a very short passage and they summarize it orally to a friend. Now this may seem boring to you or me, but it's a real challenge for a non-native speaker. What they do is they appropriate the author's language into their own, and they begin to acquire the language. Now they can change partners several times, and you can actually hear them getting more and more fluent. And of course it always helps to model the paragraph to the students before they do this.
You know, I'm thinking as a potential instructor working with teenagers, say, and some of the strategies that you describe really make the student focus very intently on a sentence or a paragraph. What kinds of instructional tricks does a teacher pull out of her bag to help the student not get bored, frankly, because they're teenagers?
Right. Okay, with teenagers are wonderful to work with because they have such inquisitive minds and they're questioning everything. And so I would first of all explain, make it very explicit what the language objective is. So today we are going to be working on academic vocabulary of this specific passage on poverty. And students of course being teenagers, very interested in equity issues. I would assume that this text on poverty goes along with something that in the textbook. And we're going to be talking about ways to eliminate or to stop poverty. And so I would be having them summarize the text, and then following that I would give them some ideas for ways to stop poverty, some vocabulary, and some complete sentences to really get them going in case they lack proficiency. Then when they pair up, they have already acquired the language proficiency to participate in a discussion on the topic of how do you prevent poverty. Because now they know that you can say, we can stop poverty by plus verb plus ing doing the following. And then they can practice using those expressions and sentences and expressing their own beliefs, this is not boring, to a partner before they participate in an oral discussion with the entire class, or maybe even make a presentation in front of the class. Students always perform to their expectations. We don't expect a lot of teenagers. We need to expect more. Once they know that we expect them to think critically about issues and to use academic language, they will do it, especially when they know that we are going to scaffold and help them acquire the language first, give them adequate time to practice this in a safe environment in which they won't be intimidated, and then perform in front of their classmates.
Now, I'm imagining you have some of those same skills you have to teach, say, to third graders, but you're going to have a different strategy. You have a different strategy at each grade level?
Absolutely. It has to be cognitively appropriate as well as linguistically appropriate, and also keeping in mind the students' affect as well at these different grade levels. When teaching young children are highly capable of learning language. We can teach some features of the language very explicitly. We can say that 2 + 2 equals, with an S, 4. We can talk about the zzz sound of the bumblebee. And we can get little ones out of their seats and moving around, which is what we need to do. We can engage them in songs that present them with academic language and jazz chants as well. We can be using even total physical response at times to teach them some of the academic words they need to know. We can teach them language games, language repetition. We can use choral repetition with little ones and direct instruction, absolutely.
I can hear the wheels turning for teachers watching this thinking, all right, how am I going to incorporate this into my day? Should this be a separate block of time? Do you set up a separate block of time to teach academic language?
Absolutely, absolutely. The reason we need to do this is if we don't give attention to academic language, it's easy to overlook it. Now, when you're teaching little ones, K through 3, I would absolutely make sure that they have access to the curriculum, and in addition, give them that extra time to learn academic language that they so need, in addition to the core curriculum. And it needs to support that core curriculum, not be so different from it that it's yet more language that students need to have, but rather supporting that core curriculum. When a child, however, comes in at grade 4, that child is going to be so far behind in terms of learning the language needed to learn academic language and content areas. That student's going to need to have an intensive language program with lots and lots of instruction in the area of academic English. Every single day, students need vocabulary instruction. Every single day in all of their content, they need reading comprehension instruction. And every single day, they need writing instruction. Writing, they should be writing every single day, as well as direct, scaffolded instruction of oral language.
I have a couple of questions that come to mind. The first is, you say every single day, for 5 minutes every single day, for 20 minutes how much time should we devote to this, should teachers devote to this?
Well, I think in the younger grades, students need English language instruction, and the amount of time is going to vary according to their needs. So if students have instructional gaps in their education, of course you're going to need to give them more English language instruction, because you need to fill in these gaps. But if they don't have instructional gaps and they come in grades K through 3, it might be enough to give them an extra 40 minutes, a block of time each day, or 45 minutes. That might be just sufficient. Once they get into the upper grades, they're going to need more time, more than an hour of daily English language instruction that includes a component of academic language.
You talked about setting up a separate block of time. I'm also imagining that during the content instruction time, you're going to infuse some of the academic language strategies in there. And let's pick writing, because you had some examples earlier. What are some strategies teachers can infuse into the writing process to focus on academic language?
Great. one of some very useful strategies for teaching writing. One is anytime you give a writing assignment, don't assume that the students have the language in order to accomplish, to write the assignment. Give them samples of what you expect.
Oh, okay.
Multiple samples are even better. You know, it's hard to write. It's hard for anybody to write when you don't know what's expected of you. So you want to make the expectations abundantly clear. In this essay, I expect you to have a thesis statement. And I expect you to put it at the very end of the paragraph. Here's some examples. And this is what a thesis sentence does. So you're actually giving very explicit, step-by-step instruction.
And then an example.
And then an example. And also, very importantly, is I give students the vocabulary, the grammatical structures, and some tips for organizing essays before they start. And I encourage them to use the words and the grammatical structures and the rhetorical tips in their writing. And I tell them, you know, if you do this, it will really help improve your writing. This is not cheating. This is what I really want you to do.
These are supports.
They're supports. And every time they write, they get better and better. And this type of advice is very good, not just for a writing instructor in English language arts teacher, say in high school or middle school, but for the science teacher in 4th grade who is having the students write a lab report, or for the social studies teacher who is having the students perhaps write a persuasive essay. So what I really would like all teachers to do is to teach writing very explicitly, step by step, with lots and lots of support, and of course some instructional feedback. Now if you remember the letter from Vaughn,
right,
she had not received any instructional feedback. So she was one of the students who you could show her words such as firstable or secondable or thirdable, and she would say, well, that's a word. I had a student like that, and I said, here's firstable, and the student said, yes, it's a word. And I said, no, it's not. It's first of all. And the student said, well, no, it's firstable, it's secondable, and thirdable. And so I had to take out a dictionary, a learner's dictionary, very important.
A very confident student.
Yes, very confident, but she had never had any feedback. And so she looked at the dictionary and she said, oh, it's first of all, you're right. But if students don't get any instructional feedback, then when they use forms again and again and again in their writing, they will stabilize over time. And that's when it's so important for a teacher to give some instructional feedback, not in a punitive sense, but in an instructional, in a very constructive way, so that students will learn from their mistakes, learning that a mistake is neither good nor bad, but just something that is perfectible that will help them to learn from.
So it's a low stakes way before you get to the high stakes.
Absolutely. And for some students, you'll have to tell them again and again and again and again. You'll have to be teaching subject-verb agreement, but they will learn. And that's what teachers need to know. And it's of course very good if teachers develop a technique that they use for providing instructional feedback that the whole school site adheres to. Whether or not it's just underlining those words that are used incorrectly, or highlighting them, or writing in the margin, or giving students some rules, or using what I like, symbols.
So this is a strategy I hadn't heard. So everyone in the school should use that same approach.
Absolutely. We promote this in whole school districts, so that way when students go from one grade to the next, they don't have to learn new symbols. They know exactly what kind of feedback their teachers are going to give them. They know when the teacher is going to give them this feedback. They don't consider it at all punitive. They expect it.
You know, there's so many challenges teachers face, and this is an area that teachers are beginning to explore. They're beginning to explore academic language, and they want to do the right thing, but they bump into these walls, and one of the walls seems to be states taking on alignment of curriculum, of content actually, and language. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, it's an enormous challenge. States have been trying to link content objectives and language objectives. I think it's very important that teachers know when they're teaching content that the English language learners also need to know language, and they need to have language objectives. It's good for them to know what they're teaching. The difficult part arises when the teacher chooses texts, stories, reading passages, textbook passages to help the students acquire the content standards, because anytime they choose a reading passage, there'll be a number of different language objectives that could be taught. And when they teach a different reading text or have the students do a different oral language assignment, they're going to need different language objectives. So it's not possible, therefore, just to take the language content and objectives and just align them without looking at what it is that children do with language in the classroom and what it is they're reading in the classroom.
So not losing that focus on language and deliberately teaching language.
That's right.
You have said so much to us. Why don't you take a sip of water? Well, I want to talk about another issue, and that has to do, it relates to what you just talked about. English language learners often are taught by many different teachers. And I wonder, who's responsible for teaching academic language?
We are all responsible for teaching academic language. Teachers are responsible for teaching academic language. In the elementary schools, it's the primary instructor who has the responsibility for laying the foundational piece for teaching academic language. A strong English language proficiency, or language proficiency in phonology and spelling, in the sounds of the language, in grammar and vocabulary, absolutely critical. And in the upper grades, that individual is going to be responsible for teaching academic language of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. However, in the individuals in the elementary school should be working very, very closely with a reading specialist. If students can't read, they can't develop academic language, and the elementary school teachers need to be working very closely with their ESL, ELD specialists, absolutely.
We get into sort of a classic question around that when you get to high school.
Yes.
Let's take the example of the biology teacher.
Oh, yes.
Biology teacher
Perfect
is teaching something that doesn't seem very language related to some people. So how does that biology teacher support academic language?
The biology teacher has a critical role. The biology teacher, first of all, should be relieved to know that I don't make that person responsible for teaching reading. If the child cannot read, doesn't know how to decode words, that biology teacher doesn't have to become a reading specialist. We have a scarcity.
It's good to
of
know for
science
biology teachers.
Yeah, they don't have to worry about that. Nor does a teacher have to worry if they've got somebody who's just beginning language learning, just arrived in the United States. The teacher should know how to teach survival skills, yes. But that we really are required by law to make sure that that beginning language learner gets enough proficiency to access language. And the biology teacher will never be an English language specialist who can give that foundational piece. The biology teacher, however, has the responsibility of teaching reading comprehension. And those biology texts are very, very difficult. And so the teacher needs to teach a variety of strategies, including using graphic organizers and note-taking skills, so that the students can access the reading. The biology teacher absolutely has the responsibility to scaffold discussions in biology, using academic words and using the text. The biology teacher absolutely has the responsibility of teaching any kind of writing associated with the biology. So that might mean, for example, teaching that lab report, or teaching students how to conduct an experiment and write it up using inquiry.
I imagine there are also a lot of opportunities for teaching vocabulary in the content area.
Oh,
and should that be a specific strategy?
Yes, and that's where that's where content vocabulary should be taught. Content vocabulary in the high school should be taught in the content class and reinforced in other classes, such as the ESL class. The best place to teach the word photosynthesis is not in an ESL class. The best place to teach it is in a biology class. In
context.
Absolutely, and so that the student really understands what photosynthesis is. Yes, you can teach photosynthesis in an ESL classroom, but you're just going to be teaching the bare basics, a very rudimentary knowledge. This is not academic language. So the content teacher plays a key role in teaching ESL, ELD, English learners.
You know, one group that presents teachers, all teachers, a number of challenges are students who are newcomers who come to us at the secondary level, often haven't had a lot of education in their own country, in their own language, and they have a short period of time before they have to graduate from high school and get all the credits. What is the role of both language teachers and content teachers in getting them to a level of having some academic language?
We have a responsibility to our students, to all of our students, no matter when they enter school, no matter what their educational backgrounds are, to teach academic language. We have some excellent approaches and especially some good curricular materials available to provide students with the intensive English language instruction that they need at the secondary levels. Students who arrive late in our system do need more instruction. We far underestimated the amount of instruction in English that they need to acquire academic language. So they might need to be in a 3-hour or 4-hour intensive language classroom and then take some other classes in addition to that. And it might be the case that they need to take summer school. They might need to go before school, after school, and hey, if they need an extra year afterwards, our goal is to make sure that they have acquired enough academic language so that they can go on and be successful in the United States. And so I would say, yes, give them more, absolutely.
It seems to me that we often, as educators of English language learners, focus on that group of students who just came in, the newcomers. But there's also another group of students who are long-term ELLs, who've been in this country a long, long time, who have some of the same gaps in language, in academic language. And I know on a day-to-day basis you work with college students, you work with older students. What are some of the challenges there, and what are some of the strategies? What can educators do at that point?
Oh, thank you. This is the largest growing population that we have in the United States. Our newcomers, especially at the secondary level, is rather small compared to this huge group of students that we have. Instruction, instruction, instruction. Practice, but knowing that it's practice perfect makes good practice, not just practicing. Students tend to acquire the language of those with whom they associate. We all do. And so our students, such as my student whose letter you read, came into the United States and acquired the language of the friends with whom she associated. And she speaks a wonderful variety of informal English, but as you noted, it won't do her very much in terms of getting her ahead in academic settings. So what we need to do is make sure that she attends to the language by using dictation exercises, for example, by using both oral close, a sentence completion activity, or a written close activity where students fill in the blanks as we dictate a passage. They need to summarize, retell passages. They need to write a lot with intensive feedback. And yes, we know that they can achieve high levels of success. They can become bidialectal, bilingual, multilingual.
For older students and for younger students, there must come a time when the support for academic language needs to sort of pull back. The teacher needs to pull back and they need to become independent users
Absolutely.
of academic language. Does that happen magically, or are there some strategies?
I wish.
Are there some strategies the teacher has to use?
Yeah. I think we wish. A lot of our schools hope that would happen, but we can't teach on a hope. So what we really need to do is plan very explicitly. Think about it as I do with my own child going on to college and beyond. You want to make sure that the child develops good learning strategies that will help that child to continue to learn. I want all English learners in the United States to know about learner dictionaries and to use them. Now, a learner dictionary is not just a dictionary that an individual has.
Tell me, because I don't know what a learner dictionary is.
They're wonderful dictionaries, and many different publishing companies have them. They're very good. They tell a student what a word means. And then they give the students a lot of information about the word. They give the students even grammatical and discourse information about the word. So they might say the word discriminate is used with the word discriminate against someone, and then they give sample sentences. So I tell all of my students, whether native or non-native, that they must have these dictionaries for English language learners. They're actually written for students that they're very appropriate beginning at grade 4 and beyond.
So it's a teacher in your pocket, sort of.
It's a teacher in your pocket, so they need that. They need to have self-editing skills. So that's why if teachers begin correcting young children, and young children love corrective feedback, they don't think it's wrong, or they expect the teacher at age 5 and 6. They begin to give instructional feedback in the very young ages and continue it, but always with the goal of making the student a self-editor. So that the student, when the student is finished with the ESL, ELD classroom and is in the mainstream class, the student goes in and says, okay, I'm great in these aspects of language, and I'm not so good in these aspects. I'm going to have to really continue to work on subject-verb agreement. I know that I have a weakness in word forms and related parts of speech, and I'm going to be correcting those because, you know, our goal in schools is not to make people perfect native English speakers, but we want to help people achieve mastery over the English language as best as they can get.
You know, we've talked a lot about what teachers can do to help students gain academic language, and we often put it all on the teachers, but what about other people in the educational system? What about principals? What about school district personnel? What can they do to help here?
Oh, thanks, Delia. It's so important that we get principals and vice principals, everybody in the administration, to understand that it's not easy to teach academic language, and students really need to have good curricular programs. They need to investigate the very best curricular programs for teaching academic language so that the students have a coherent program for English language development. And we need to get the principals in the classrooms to they need to go into the classrooms to watch the teachers so that they'll understand how hard it is to teach academic language and to make sure that teachers get the appropriate support to teach academic language. We've had 3 generations of teachers who really haven't had much instruction in grammar themselves and can't tell the difference between a noun and a preposition.
Oh dear. And
oftentimes they're ashamed of that. Well, there's no reason to be ashamed at all. That was just the case of our public schools.
So what role does professional development play in all this? Should administrators be shaping professional development in a certain way?
Yes, they need to make sure that when teachers are teaching content, for example, they need to know how to scaffold the content to make sure that they're teaching language objectives. When I'm in classrooms and I'm watching teachers teach in Los Angeles or wherever I am, I notice that what teachers are having the most difficulty with are language objectives, identifying what language they can teach to help students access the content and participate in the content instruction.
You know, teachers often talk about not having the time to plan together and collaborate together. What ideas do you have for creating that space for teachers to collaborate around common academic language targets?
Yes, thank you. Teachers do need the time. It takes time. It takes them time to learn the language themselves, to teach students, and the strategies. And so they need to have lesson planning time in which they come together to talk about the curriculum for English language development so that they work together as teams with their ESL, ELD coaches, with the reading specialists, the reading coaches, with the administration, with all the specialists in the schools so that they give students more of a seamless education and they get everybody on the same train going in the same direction.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface. What are some other resources you can tell us about quickly before we wind up that teachers could use or turn to in developing academic language?
Yes, thank you. If you go into our websites, and I'll leave you a list of our websites, you'll find that we have developed many websites for helping teachers develop grammar, vocabulary, a discourse of the English language, for helping students correct their own writing, and for developing their grammar and vocabulary. We also have useful websites where teachers can have the most recent sort of cutting edge research on what works for teaching English language learners.
We will certainly put a list of those up on the website, but is there one right now you could tell us about as an example, a website that's good for teachers to go to?
Yes, the What Works website is an excellent place because it gives very useful information about the types of strategies that are research-based, that have been tried and tested with English language learners, and it demonstrates some of those for teachers as well.
Are there misconceptions out there about academic language that you feel that we need to address?
Oh, yes.
Give us a few.
Yes. There's one misconception, is that it takes students so many years to acquire academic language, maybe 7 or 12 or 10. It can take students forever or never to acquire it if they don't get exposure to academic language, lots of practice in using academic language, and instruction in using academic language, including instructional feedback. So the amount of time is going to really vary greatly depending on how much instruction that they get in academic language. Another myth is that we can teach academic language in an ESL or an ELD class, and then students don't need any afterwards. That is a complete myth. Students, all of us, including me, need instruction to improve academic language development after they've left their ESL, ELD classroom, after they've left the English classroom. Everybody is in the process of acquiring academic language and improving upon it, including me. And we need to continually be working on it with supports. Now, what happens if you don't get those supports or if you stop working on it? Your language tends to plateau. And so that's why we need these continual supports. One other myth is that academic language is easy to assess. Not so. It's very poorly defined for assessment purposes. Research is just beginning to develop that will help us identify the features of academic language that are accessible at the various proficiency levels. So we're in the experimental stages. So a test of academic language is necessarily going to be experimental at this point.
So right now, when we get test scores back on proficiency, we've got a slice of what students do academically.
Absolutely.
And we need to do some more work around that.
Absolutely.
You have been in this field for so long and you've done so much, and it was just fascinating talking to you today. Would you like to leave us with some thoughts, our viewers with some thoughts today? A final thought, perhaps?
Yes. If you look at Von's letter, my student, who came into the United States at age 5, and you can see her tremendous improvement with instruction at the end of a year. Now, it might take some students 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, a lot of instruction to acquire academic language. It's highly teachable. Our students are extraordinarily bright. We're talking about one of the hardest working groups of students in the United States who have achieved great heights academically. We need to support them by teaching them academic English.
Thank you for that insight. That is, I think, a valuable one for all of us. And thank you for sharing all your knowledge with us today.
It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
And thank you all for joining us for this Colorín Colorado webcast. For more information about the literacy of the young English language learners in your life, please visit us on the web at www.colorincolorado.org. Again, thank you for joining us and take care.
Funding for this Colorín Colorado webcast is provided by the American Federation of Teachers, with additional support from the National Council of La Raza.
Okay. Okay, class. So you had already have your notes. Now you are going to compare your note with the reading. Okay, we have here the reading. And then we are going to the activity. Organize that. So, wait a minute. So, right. Okay, here's the reading. Okay. So you can start reading this and you can compare, okay, with ideas that you got from the video. Okay. Let's start reading. You have the link there in the, it's the first one in the PowerPoint, or in you need, you can read from here. Okay. Okay. For example, why is academic language important? What did Dr. Scarcella share about this point? Why it's academic? Similar to this, read carefully and try to compare the ideas.
Well, academic language helps the student to get more comprehension, and they could easily, when they are in university, write his papers, his essays, and they have fluently speaking and writing when they have to prepare his notes, his exposition, his essays. So it's very important since they are little to learn an academic language.
Yes. Okay, that's it. That's why it's important. That's good. Okay, so those they agree, no? This article and Dr. Escarcela, because he said, for example, is they said here, the use of academic language is more important than ever in preparing students for academic and professional success, particularly in the area of rigorous college and career-ready language. Okay. Very good. But what is your role? Do they agree about the role of the teachers? What the Dr. Escarcela says about the role?
Yes.
Yes, Jose Daniel?
I consider that because till today, I thought that we should graduate our language, the set of words that we use in certain steps or levels. But with the video, I understand that it is important the students could be exposed to those structures or kind of words, not just doing easy for them, but doing the necessary for them. So it's not just what they know now, but they can do in the future. So the role for me as a teacher is provide the tools, the words, or some structures that help them to understand specialized words in certain fields, not just grading or turning the structures easier.
That's it. And also, as Dr. Escarcela said, giving students feedback. Huh? And she said, for example, that when she, first you give the content, okay? For example, here it said, you need some guidance and practice. So the first step is give the contents, the vocabulary structures, and practice, and they had to produce, because she said that they for example they asked their student to do an oral presentation, so they have learned, no, so what they have read or okay, so that's important. But the role of the teacher is to give support, okay, to give the necessary tools for the students, okay, and also give the feedback, give the path to the student to work with. Okay. What about this? What is the difference between social and academic language?
I think.
Yes, Kate.
I think academic.
Or Ruth? Okay, who's okay. Okay, Kayla and then Ruth. Kayla first, ¿sabes?
Okay. According to the Miss Robin, she said on social we use every day. With those we can communicate, but without article, without preposition. We use basic words every day, or we use slang. And for academic, we use more sophisticated words, transition words. That's the difference that I understood.
Yes.
About
Great.
yes.
Great, Kayla. And Ruth? What did you say?
Okay. Academic language is language used in school context. It's a language of text, prestige, and power, especially in the USA. Also, academic English is more polite than English we use in everyday life, and we need to use more connectors.
Yes, that's right. Excellent. Okay. One strategy that academic language expert Dr. Robin Scarcella uses to help her colleague students understand the difference between social is providing with similar sentence or passage that convey the same meaning, but they are written in different styles, such as a fact. I like this book more. Academic English. This story is more exciting than the first one we read. Okay, can you see this is social English? This is academic English. It worked. Our experiment was successful because they were brave. The soldiers received the medal because of their courage. Okay, so can you see the difference between social English and academic language? As Ruth said, it's more sophisticated. Okay, and you see, and you use connectors or something. Okay, very good.
Yes, Professor. It has transition words.
Yes, that's it. Very good.
To avoid using blank.
Very good. Here you have another additional resources that we can see if you want. Basic interpersonal communication skills, refers to social language, cognitive academic language proficiency, refers to academic language. This is another way to explain, no? Bricks and mortar. There's something to talk about the bricks and mortar. She explained very well. But you can watch later if you want. Okay. Okay. Later we're going to see talking about the homophones. Okay. Same word, different meaning. When you teach academic language, you have to keep in mind this. To teach the words and the different meanings or uses of those words. Okay. We have some examples there. Cognates also. Okay. This is also very important that you can teach your students about cognates. Okay. This is a false cognate. The most famous one being that embarazada in Spanish, not embarrassed. It means pregnant. It is not a 100% foolproof strategy, but it's generally a very useful tool. So when we teach false cognates, okay, because you have cognates, but also you have some false cognates. Similar to Spanish, but different meaning. Okay. Like embarazado, embarrassed. Okay. Time for purpose and products. Okay. This is important also. Planning. Okay. Because you plan every step in the classroom according to your student needs. You will teach them correctly. This is some approaches. Means of language. Okay. It says, while the uses of academic language may be more obvious for reading and writing, academic language is also necessary for listening to class discussion, lectures, and debates, as well as delivering speeches, presentation, and oral arguments. This what the Dr. Escarcela said about this. Does she agree, no, or no? This assumption.
Yes, she is agree, and she said also that you need to practice
Yeah.
every day.
Yes, that's it. And he said, the most important thing that you can do is to provide examples and model the kinds of language you expect model the kind of language expect students to use on a regular basis. By doing so, you will help familiarize students with the kinds of academic language needed for succeeding in your classroom. Okay. Very good. If you want to know something more about this, you have these resources you can enter. Okay. Very good. Excellent. Okay. So with this, we are going to work in activity that you're going to upload into the platform. Okay. And you can work alone, or you can work in pairs, or you can work in groups of 3. Okay. I think I can make groups here. Let's see. And here. Yeah, no, I got some groups. But you can work as you did yesterday. Okay. Okay. What I want you can do. You have to develop a presentation. We had also you have to answer all these questions. Okay. And in pairs, or if you want alone, or in groups of 3, you can prepare a short presentation. Okay. With all the answers, you can show a short presentation in Word or in PowerPoint. It's up to you. Okay. But the idea is that you can share what you have learned with these two, with the video and the reading. Okay. So you have to answer these questions. Okay. And what you are going to do. I wonder you can. Wait a minute, please. So. Okay. You're going to do an activity that is called, okay, el diagrama del por qué. Yeah. Entonces, you're going to prepare for why it's important in English. No? And you have your topic here, you have the reason, and you have the 4 ideas. Okay. Okay. Okay, and to do it faster, maybe we can divide the idea so you can work in just one and you can share with your classmates. Okay, for example, you're gonna work with, for example, we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 topics. Okay, 5 topics. So we have how many students? 26 students. 26 divided into 5. Okay. Let's say For the students, for 5 students. Okay. You can make groups of 5, okay? And you have to prepare, okay? Choose 5 classmates to do that, okay? To develop a short presentation. It could be in Word or in a PowerPoint that you are going to upload in the platform. And then I can check, and then you can talk about it, okay? Let's do it.
Professor, I have a question about the second question.
What is the
It's
second
very
question?
specific about if we work in a school, because it says like, does your school have an effective, comprehensive academic, and that one? But we don't all work in schools, so I don't know.
It could be in general. You know something about?
So we would talk about what would our ideas would be to develop a curriculum.
Yeah, something to help students to learn academic language, no? With ideas that you listen in Dr. Escarcela or the reading. Maybe you can apply it into our situation here in Bolivia, no? According to your experience or the experience of the others. So you can exchange information, talk about it, okay? Okay. Have you got it? Yes?
Yes, Professor, thank you.
Okay. Okay, choose, you have to form the groups, okay? 5, and 1 with 6, not 24. Could be 5, 4, 20.
Make the groups.
Sorry?
You can make the groups. There you have an option for making the groups, and we are going to have a little classrooms for the students. For us, a little rooms.
I can't hear you very clearly, but I think you said that you can form the groups. Yes, Manuela?
No, you can do it because you are.
Ah, okay.
And you can break the class in little groups, in little rooms.
Okay.
You have an option there down.
Salas de grupos pequeños.
Yes. So you have to choose how many students you want the group.
Yeah. Crear 5 salas. 5.
Professor, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was having problems with my internet. I have a question. So each group has to talk about the 5 points?
No, just 1. Just 1, because we don't have enough time to develop. No? So at the after you finish, you are going to share the ideas, okay? So everybody could have the answers. Okay. Sigue haciendo manualmente. Oh, permítame. A ver, entonces, asignarme puntualmente.
Professor, and how will our group know what answer to choose, what question, sorry, to choose?
Okay, the first group will be the first question. The second so on, according to we have in the PowerPoint, okay? And the first group, a ver. Ya, ok, vamos a asignar sala 1, asignar. Ya, a la sala 1 va a ir Alicia, Ana Rosario, Ángelo, Caballero y Durán. ¿Ya? Entonces ustedes tienen you have the first, tienen el primer topic de ahí del PowerPoint. ¿Ya? Comiencen a trabajar, por favor. Sala 2. Eric, Genesis, Johnny, José, Keila. ¿Ok? Tienen el tema 2, por favor. Sala 3. Laura, Leonela, y Belén, María José, y María Magna. Tienen el topic 3, el tercer tópico, ¿ya? Entren a esa sala, vayan entrando y vayan conversando, ¿listo? Vayan preparando su PowerPoint. Todo lo que puedan de eso, características, no sé, bueno, todo lo que puedan hablar. Uy. El grupo 4, Mariana, Lorena, Natalie, Rode, Rolando. No, entonces, Rode. Me falta. Sí. Mariana, Lorena, Natalia y Rode. ¿Ya? El grupo 4. El grupo 5. Rolando, Cruz, Sandra, Valeria. Ahora sí. Ahora abro, ¿no? ¿Sí?
Yes.
Ahí se une. Bien. Bien. Mariana Rodríguez, únase a su grupo.
Hello, Professor. I'm sorry. Thank you. I was in the group 3 and Zoom kicked me out.
Okay. Tell me.
Professor.
Yes.
So
No, Professor.
our question was about if we should upload the document in the platform.
Yes. You task number 1. You have task number 1 there below. You
Number
need
two.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
number 2.
Okay.
Okay. So you have to open that and you can upload.
Okay.
Okay.
Professor, I have a little problem. I don't have access to Plataforma yet because this is my first class here, and the system engineer couldn't fix my problem.
But it's
Perhaps tomorrow.
okay. Okay,
So
don't
they
worry.
told me-
Tomorrow we can grade you. Okay.
Okay.
Don't worry. But your name is here. It's okay.
Okay.
No problem. Tomorrow we can, because every student should work on the platform.
Yes.
Okay? To get the grades. Okay.
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 Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. That's all?
Yes.
Professor.
Okay. Okay. I was in there.
Hello,
Hello. Sorry, I'm going to. You were in 3, yes?
Yes.
Asignar. Sí. Sería por el ¿no?
Sí, le voy a añadir. Le voy a hacer ahorita la formita para que
Ya.
sea como el mapita.
Ajá. Ya. Está bien.
Okay.
Listen.
Hello. I was trying to get it Leonela. She's there waiting to. Okay, don't worry. I'm going to.
Oh, listen, we have our classmate, Laura Amador.
She can.
Sí, estoy tratándola de ingresar. A ver, espérate. Pues, No me da la opción de poner. Ah, ya. Asignar acá. 03. En la 3 me dijo, ¿no? Laura.
Sí. Thank you, Professor.
Okay. Otra. Ya estoy. Okay. Okay, I'm going to close the rooms. Okay, I'm going to close the rooms. I hope that you have finished. Okay. Okay. I'm closing the rooms. Okay. Okay, we are going to start checking some of the words. Okay. I'm going to check. Okay. Vamos a ver. Sí, vamos. Ya sé. Ya. Entonces vamos a ver. Yeah, okay. Okay, that's good. Okay. This is the second point, no? Does your school have an effective comprehensive academic? Okay. Okay, good. They give their reasons why they think they didn't believe that they are not good. There is an effective comprehensive academic language curriculum. Okay, the solutions. Okay. Very good. To also can see that that's good. Excellent. That's your opinion. What about the others? Do you agree? Do you have any other suggestions?
We are good evening, Professor. We are group 2. I work with Jose Daniel, Johnny, Genesis, and Kayla.
Okay. I'm gonna look for them. Okay. A ver. Muy bien. Muy bien. Entonces yo voy a guardar. Acá lo voy a poner el puntaje, la calificación sobre 5, digamos, ¿no? Y guardar y mostrar lo siguiente. Muy bien.
No, ya la hablé a la chica, me dijo que se lo iba a enviar al ingeniero para que lo vea. Te van a ayudar.
And the name of this group? This what types professional? Who are the?
We cannot see the slide.
I'm sorry. Sorry. I made a mistake. Sorry. I can't see any name of here.
That's group 5, Professor.
Group 5?
Yes, Professor, group 5. Valeria, Sandra, Rolando, and
Ruth.
And Ruth, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Provide your name. Okay. A ver. Valeria. Okay. Ah, que te compartiendo pantalla. Ah, no, perfecto. The problem is that I can write anything here. Okay, when you please don't forget your names because
Maybe we can upload that again, Professor, with our names.
yeah, could be. I'm right, okay, that's it. Yeah, because I can grade you because I don't have your names here. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So Solo está Aguilera. Okay. Lidia Valeria Aguilera, no. Ya, vamos a ver el celular. Sandra Mercedes. Sandra Mercedes.
Yes, group 5.
¿Es el mismo?
Yes, it's the same.
No es el mismo, pero igual solo tengo dos nombres, digamos, para calificar. O sea, cuando yo califico aquí, cuando se califica individualmente. Entonces tengo que tener los nombres para poder yo buscarlo. Yo abro y lo califico, porque digamos aquí si califico a Sandra Mercedes, solo voy a calificar a Sandra Mercedes, ¿ya? Pero en este caso, bueno, yo me voy a dar el trabajo de buscar, ¿no? Pero digamos, en otras veces cuando envíen tareas, traten de enviar cada uno, aunque sea la misma información, para que yo lo abra, vea que ya tiene la tarea, entonces ya califico, ¿ya? Es que es individual la calificación. Digamos, califico, digamos, 5, guardo, y ya solo Sandra Mercedes va a tener un nombre. El otro, Rolando Arias. Rolando Arias. Nuevamente abrimos. Ah, es el mismo. Cada uno mandó. ¿Me abre el mismo archivo?
Yes, yes, teacher. Team number 4 to do the same thing. Everybody upload the same
Okay, está bien.
report.
Okay. Okay. Ya. Entonces, en otra, cuando trabajemos así en grupo, le van a poner ahí, cada uno lo va a enviar, pero le va a poner también grupo 1, grupo 2, así. ¿Ya? Este más fácil.
In team 4 are all the names in the paper.
Sí, yo ahorita lo voy a ver. Y, por ejemplo, le pueden poner task 1, question 5, sí, está bien. A ver qué escribe. Ahí mismo. Yeah. Entonces, it's the same. It's the same. Okay. Ya. Yo entonces voy a calificar todos los trabajos que han enviado. Entonces yo ya veo si. Ya. Ok, lo han hecho muy bien.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, class. For tomorrow, we are going to see. Vamos a continuar un poquito con una actividad más que tenía para esta unidad. Lección, vamos a empezar con eso, ¿ya? Esta actividad es muy bonita, ya una práctica de, un ratito te comparto, a ver. Una práctica de el uso de, o sea, de algunas actividades ya relacionadas con el primer tema es Exploring Academic Discourse, Spiritual Learning, Concept. Es un libro, ¿ya? Que vamos a analizar este Toolkit Class. Okay. No sé si aquí está la enlace. Ya. Se lo voy a poner ahí en la plataforma. El enlace para que vayan ustedes leyendo el libro. Este es un libro. Ya cuando entremos mañana a las clases, entonces ya vamos a ir directo a la actividad. Ya, si tienen alguna pregunta, analizamos digamos, lo que dice. Bueno, y vamos a hacerlo en grupos, ¿ya? Entonces, vamos a dividirlo en 3 grupos y entonces vamos a trabajar así, hacer los ejercicios, ¿no? Es como un ejemplo de cómo se trabaja, ¿no? Cómo se hace, digamos, estos temas que están relacionados con el academic language, ¿ok? Es una práctica, es una revisión, digamos, de eso, ¿no? Y después vamos a ver algunos ejemplos más de lo que son los cognitive devices y todo eso, ¿no? Aunque más adelante vamos a seguir trabajando un poquito más ya en el academic language, ¿no? Esto ya, bueno, es una introducción, cómo deberíamos trabajar, ¿no? Y estas son algunas ideas, ¿ya? Eso lo vamos a hacer así mañana. Okay, entonces les paso ahorita el enlace o lo subo el libro a la plataforma y ustedes ya lo van a ver. Se llama ya, o si no, al grupo de WhatsApp ahorita se los voy a pasar. Ya, para que ustedes vayan examinándolo para mañana. No hagan nada, solo leanlo, revísenlo, analícenlo, vean esos toolkit tasks, son actividades. Y luego ya en la clase los trabajamos. ¿Listo? Muy bien, I think that's all for today. Creo que eso es todo por hoy. Yo me quedo con, ¿qué se llama? Me quedo revisando, ¿ok? Revisando lo que han hecho. Y si tienen alguna pregunta, no sé, algo que no les haya quedado claro. Y siempre hagan el CQA, ¿no? Que hicimos ayer, lo que sé, lo que quiero hacer, lo que quiero aprender. ¿Ok? Eso es bueno. A ver, para mañana, a ver si me muestran de la primera unidad que aprendieron. ¿Ok? La segunda nos olvidamos. Pero ya para la próxima, para mañana, pueden hacer el tema de la tercera unidad. Vamos a terminar esta segunda, pero la tercera es la primera. No lean nada, solamente ustedes ese CQA, ese cuadrito de conozco, quiero y lo que aprendí. Solamente digamos es lo que ustedes, ¿no? Lexical categories. Ese es el número 3 el tema. Ustedes que saben qué es léxico, categorías, que no lean nada, solo de lo que ustedes saben, el primer cuadrito. Luego lo que ustedes piensen que podrían aprender en ese lexical categories. Y como siempre ya después de avanzar, ya tienen que hacer lo que aprendieron. ¿Listo? Do you have any questions? No questions? Okay, thank you very much, class.
No question, teacher. Bye bye.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. See you next
Bye,
time.
Professor. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Entra en este mismo link ¿Listo?
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Good night.
Bye, Professor.